Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today is the April wrap-up video. I actually ended up reading quite a few books in the month of April. It didn't seem like it at the time because we traveled to Seattle and I didn't really read while I was on vacation, but I did, and I am amazing. So let's just get straight into it. We're gonna start with the manga I read. So first up, I read volumes 21 and 22 of Fire Force. Still really enjoying this series. I just finished volume 23 or 23 and it's progressing like really nicely. I'm really happy with where the story is going. I'm enjoying myself a lot. I still have not checked to see how many volumes are in this series, but I'm getting close to the end and I have no idea how this is going to end. I'm not going to insert a picture though because I don't want to really spoil anything, but I did see a panel. I don't think it was in either of these. It might have been. Man, it's been so long. But I saw recently in one of the volumes that I read a picture of a character standing in front of the sun, and the sun looks like the sun from Soul Eater. So I think we're about to see how Soul Eater and Fire Force are within the same universe. So that's exciting. So, not finished, but still really liking Fire Force. Next, I read volumes 1 and 2 of Kaiju 8. This is a newer series. This volume 2, just came out in the end of March or early April, something like that. Really enjoying this series. I absolutely would recommend it. Basically, we're in a world where there are monsters. This is a well-known thing. And one of our main characters that we follow that goes by the name Kafka, he is like a cleanup crew. And he's in his 30s. He's been cleaning up the monsters for a long time. But when he was a kid, and as he's grown up, has always wanted to be a part of the like military side of things where they actually fight and kill the monsters. Well, new guy shows up. I cannot remember his name. And he is a part of the cleanup crew, and he kind of makes fun of Kafka for being so old and in this cleanup crew side of things, because he is going to join the military. And he's like, hey, this is the first year and I think the last year that they've extended the age requirement, so you're just making the cut. You should try. Don't give up. So he's a big motivator for Kafka, and something happens and somebody gets turned into a kaiju. I gotta tell you. So now there are hybrids, human kaiju, and then the monsters are the kaiju. And then there's other forms of them. And in this volume, we see that the monsters, there are some sentient monsters who are hybrids who may be trying to make hybrids. We don't know why yet, but I'm really enjoying it. I would absolutely recommend it. So far, I would say like I think this is going to be like a 5-star series. Don't know how many it's going to be though, but I have a good feeling about this series. And last, I read volumes 1 through 4 of Miruku-chan. This is really good, in my opinion. I've seen some people have some mixed reviews of this series, and some people stopped after the first volume. Totally up to you. In my opinion, I'm glad that I kept going and I got all 4, because there's a lot more to the story than just, hey, this high school girl, she sees ghosts. I think the issue for some people was that they thought this was going to be like pure, like horrifying type of story. It has its scary moments, but it's about a high school girl who sees ghosts, and she's not willing to accept like, maybe there's more of a reason for why I'm seeing these ghosts. And as the story progresses, she starts to meet more people who are in tune with ghosts, basically. And, you know, some of these ghosts, hey, they may be trying to get her help to move on. There was one scene, I think in volume 2, that actually made me tear up, because she helped a ghost move on, and she helped the remaining, or the living spouse of that ghost kind of have closure. And I feel like there's more to the story than just like, okay, oh, we're silly teenagers. It's like this much fan service, you know. There's always got to be like big titted friend, flat chested friend, someone's grabbing someone's tits. So I could do without that in the story, but the general story or whatever is actually really good. So I would recommend. I think the next volume comes out either this month or next month, and I will be reading and I will be continuing on with the series because I actually really enjoy it. So next up are some books that are not manga, and these I read at the very beginning of the month right before vacation. And first of the two was Our Violent Ends by Chloe Gong. This is the second book in These Violent Delights duology, and really good. Did not like it as much as the first book. I would say I rated this like a 3.5 stars. Basically, this picks up right at the end of the first book, and we as the audience know what happened to a particular character, but Roma and Juliet are now on the outs again. Roma has a deep, burning pit of hate for Juliet. She's trying to keep it together for her family, for her community, for her city, you know, for her country. And there's a lull, but then some violence starts happening again. And they thought that they defeated the monster from the first book, but it's still there. I would say the thing that was so frustrating about this book was, well, first, there's a lot of stuff going on. It's not just simply, hey, the two rival gangs are fighting against each other, you know, Romeo and Juliet retelling. There's the nationalists, there's the communists, there's the, like, the foreign leaders who, you know, are trying to, like, further colonize Shanghai. So there's a lot of political stuff going on that got to be a little hard to follow. That may be my fault because it's been so long since reading the first book and the second book that I kind of lost track of what was going on. Then there's an additional player that's brought into the mix that I thought, what the hell? Like, where did this person come from? I figured out who the new monster leader was pretty early. I figured out who Rosalind's secret lover was pretty early. I think it was pretty obvious, just for me. I'm not saying that as a criticism. I just felt like it was pretty clear, like, who that was going to be. But yeah, so there's a lot of stuff going on. But the thing that really was so frustrating is they're young. I get it. But at this point, Roma, every single time you think that Juliet was, like, going to be A, she is always B. Okay, y'all in love with each other. Why do you never just think, like, this is probably a ruse? That's what I could not stand about Roma. And he's my least favorite character in the book. I love all of the Scarlet Gang. I like Juliet. I like her cousin, Kathleen. The whole thing that happened with Tyler had me crying. But in general, I think the duology is really good. I think I just might not have... I probably should have reread the first book because there were a few things that I couldn't quite remember. But ultimately, I do think that the duology is really good, but I only rated this one 3 stars compared to the first book, which I really liked. I would still say give the duology a read. It's not short, but I think it reads kind of fast. That's just my opinion. The next book I finished at the very beginning of this month was Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes. This was really, really good. And I believe I rated this on Goodreads 4 stars. So this is a horror thriller type book where it takes place in space. This crew basically finds an abandoned ship. 20 years ago, it was like the Titanic, essentially, for space. And 20 years ago, it disappeared. Nobody knew what happened to it. And they find it in space. And kind of like in real life, which I don't know the details of this, but you know, if you find a treasure, like, it belongs to you in this country, I guess. I don't know. I always heard that. That might just been me and National Treasure. Blending memories. But they're like, okay, we have to get on this ship and we have to get proof that we found it because there's no way that we can use our ship to haul it back, you know, to Earth or whatever. So this book is not necessarily broken up into 2 parts, but like with a distinctive chapter that says part 1, part 2. But it's very clear there's a, we found the ship and then someone gets away. They're the only survivor. And now we see it like from present day after they've escaped the ship. So I didn't like the second part of the book. I preferred the first one. And I actually wish we would have gotten more time on the ship. There were some scenes in this book that were so good that this turned into a show or a movie. I really hope that they include it because it really gave me goosebumps. And anyone who's read the book, I think you know what I'm talking about. They're in like the ballroom, atrium type situation, and things are floating above them, and that was really scary. The twist about this one, I still thought was actually really cool, but I was kind of hoping for something else. If you've read the book, please let's talk about it in the comments, because I have some feelings about this one. Like I said, I did like it, but I wanted the monster, or whatever you would want to call it, to be one thing, and then it's not that. But you have an unreliable narrator in this book. Claire, I think their name is? Yeah. Claire is like an unreliable narrator. She's grown up in space her whole life. There was a traumatic event that happened when she was a kid that basically kind of had her seeing, like experiencing hallucinations, hearing voices. So that's something that she's already always dealt with. And then what happens on the ship is even worse. So she doesn't know what is real and what is fake. So it's a lot. But ultimately, I did think it was really cool. And even though I pretty much figured out the twist, I still like it. It's really gory, which is really cool. The ending was a bit cheesy to me, but it is what it is. And yeah, I really liked it. I would say give this a read. Go ship a salvage crew, Unspeakable Horrors. Yes, I mean, the cover really speaks to what you're going to read in the book. I recommend. Next, I read The Heart Principle by Helen Huang. This is my first Helen Huang book. I got this as a book of the month book, but I actually listened to it as an audiobook on Hoopla. Just because, you know, it was there. I figured, you know, I can listen to this while I'm driving to work. And honestly, this was really, really good. For my first Helen Huang book, I think that this was a good one to start with. It's a romance novel, and I think I rated this 4 stars. Basically, you're following Anna. She's a violin player. She's the youngest in her family. I believe her family is Chinese, but I'm not sure. And I believe that Kwan's family is Vietnamese. So basically, there's a lot of tradition in her family, a lot of expectations she's expected to uphold, but there's always been something that made her feel like she didn't live up to X, Y, and Z, or she has to pretend. She's often very anxious, and she does things like tapping her teeth. And as an adult, she eventually goes to a therapist and finds out that she is possibly autistic. But she's in a relationship. Her boyfriend's a piece of crap. And he's like, I want to see other people. So she's like, all right, let me do a one-night stand. We enter Kwan. Kwan, hunky. He sounds like a hottie. He's got tattoos. He rides a motorcycle. He had testicular cancer, I believe. And he had one of his balls removed. And since he's recovered, he has felt like less of a man. And he's like, maybe I should just have sex one time. And this is how Anna and Kwan basically come together. But of course, these two like kind of awkward, you know, just kind of like blossoming people from these traumatic things that have happened to them, or these things that have happened all their life that they haven't really had the opportunity to express themselves to their family about. It can't just be as simple as a one-night stand. And I really liked that. I think that the romance in this book is very sweet, but also very realistic. And I think that's what made a lot of the hookup scenes really hot and steamy. And it wasn't like, hey, we're just gonna bang right now. I know a lot of people like to read that. I'm not saying I don't, but I don't mind a slow burn sex scene where, hey, you know, we're teasing each other, we're doing X, Y, and Z, but no penetration yet. I think that's kind of hot, because let's be real, like for the most of us, that's how it really works. Like, it's okay, we're making out, I'm rubbing X, Y, and Z. We don't actually do anything, but you leave feeling like, oh my God, that was so hot. And that's how the book is. But someone's parent has a stroke, and that person has to take care of their family member, and it causes good things and bad things for this particular person, because they're trying to come to terms with their own reality to get their family to come to terms with that, but there's still those expectations. And at that point, I just told you who it was, so it's Anna. So Anna's father has a stroke. she has to take care of him along with her sister and her mother and then some other family, but her sister is like very type A. She doesn't want to bring a nurse in when really they should have brought outside help, but her sister is a control freak. She won't respect or acknowledge that Anna has autism. Nobody and nothing that anyone does is ever good enough for her sister Priscilla, and that causes an issue later. Quan is dealing with work stuff. He's kind of being disrespected by the sister. I don't want to give too much away, but I thought it was a really good book. I genuinely liked it. I liked Anna and Quan's relationship. Anna would drive me crazy sometimes, but I understand it's not, like, you have to look at it like there are things that she does and that she's been doing her whole life that she didn't realize until now. This is a response, and this is something that happens because I have autism. And so she would, there were some things that she did, something that she may have said yes to that I was like, no. But the circumstances made it so it's like she had to do that. And of course, the people around her who don't respect her and don't acknowledge and don't see the way, like, this is obviously her very uncomfortable. They ignore it. And really, in my opinion, it's really their fault that she ends up saying or doing things that, I don't want to even say get her in trouble, but for lack of a better phrase, get her into situations that she's not comfortable with. It's other people not wanting to ever think that maybe she might just be saying that because she knows that it makes me happy. So fuck some people in the book, okay? But damn, that was a long rant. Basically, this was really good. Like I said, 4 stars. I liked the romance. I liked the steamy bits. I liked the relationship. I thought it was really great. I would absolutely recommend. I haven't read The Kiss Quotient yet. I would like to read that, and it's free on Hoopla, so that might be the next Helen Huang book that I read. A lot of people said that they liked that book. I don't think I've heard anybody on BookTube or Book Talk say that they didn't like The Kiss Quotient. There's another one that she wrote. It's a yellow cover, but I cannot remember what that's called. So maybe I'll read all 3. Those 3 are all available on Hoopla, so I may be reading them all. So that being said, good book. I recommend. And lastly, I read How We Fight White Supremacy by Akiba Solomon and Kenria Rankin. I tapped it up. I'm trying to get better about annotating books. I'm not good with the color coding. Okay, this is just very all over the place. So yellow are like facts, definitions, or statistics. Blue is what I started with for just like, that's a really good point. And then I didn't want to just all be blue and yellow, so I made purple. I put purple in there. I don't know. I just liked it to be colorful. But this was 5 stars. It was very, very great. I would absolutely recommend it. It's like a collection of interviews, poetry. I think there were a few short stories in here too, if I remember correctly. Like there's a bunch of different people that collaborated within this book, and I thought it was really great. The thing I really like about this book is that Akiba and Kenria, at the very end of each chapter, have their own little like moment of talking about the subject that the chapter was about. So, for example, you've got chapter 1, which is information. Some of the people that were featured were Tarana Burke, Tefpo Jackson, Christopher Rashad Green, and some of the other ones you have like this one. I really liked this one. Beverly Bevy Smith. I read her memoir. Did I read that at the beginning of this year? If you haven't read Bevy Smith's memoir, you should. It was really great. I listened to it as an audiobook. I would absolutely recommend. But so you have several people who contributed to a particular chapter, and then at the very end, they have their own little interview style, kind of just like summary, maybe like a background of their life that, what's the word? An anecdote? Like an anecdote for the chapter. But yeah, so some of the people that were featured in this, I read some names already, but Ta-Nehisi Coates, Tarana Burke, Harry Belafonte, Damon Young, I read his book. So you've got a bunch of contributors to this book, and a lot of the quotes in there too are from people who might not have be the person that you read about in I think it's like everyday people. So how I fight white supremacy. So for example, I fight white supremacy by supporting authors, journalists, writers, podcasters, entrepreneurs, and community leaders of color. That was by Tina Perez, a project manager. So that's how I feel like it's kind of more on the casual side, is you have these interview style chapters, you have poetry, you have stories, and then you have like recaps from the actual like people who created the book, and then you also have quotes mixed in. And I just liked that about the book. I think it's really good. I think it's something that if you are somebody who is anti-racist, trying to be anti-racist, wanting to learn, I'd say pick up this book. It's got a lot of chapters about personal experiences too, so give it a read. It's 5 stars in my opinion. I think it was pretty quick too. It's only 10 chapters. It's something that you could absolutely read in a month if you're someone who likes to take nonfiction slow, which I do. And that's why I think it was good to annotate this one, because it wasn't like it was jam-packed with like, oh, how do I say? It's not like it was like a bunch of figures and numbers. It was, you know, it's very few yellow in here for definitions. A lot of the definitions, I already know what they are, but I still thought it was worth tabbing. But you see I have much more purple and blue, which is like, that is a really good point, or that's something I didn't think of. So give it a read. And let me not just keep going on. Give it a read. 5 stars. So there you have it. That is my April wrap-up video. I don't even know how many books this was. 4, 8... Oh, 12. That was 12 books, right? Yeah. So I read 12 books in the month of April. Did a really good job, if I do say so myself. If you've already seen my last video, you know in the month of May, I am mostly reading all manga. I'm going to slip a few other ones in there that are, you know, I was reading in the month of April, then finished. But yes, thank you so much for watching. That is my wrap up. Any of these you guys read? Any of these you liked? Any of them you didn't like? Please, again, anybody who read Dead Silence, please in the comments, let's talk about it, because I really, really, really like that book. And I want to know your thoughts on, you know, the part 1, part 2 type situation. So thank you so much for watching. If you like the video, please like the video. If you like it, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Follow me on social media. Why not? I'm trying to get better at it. So yeah, thank you so much. Have a good day. Goodbye.